All right, this is the second part of debugging a 2015 Jetta with no compression. What we're gonna be doing today, I actually hooked up my iPad here with the actual workshop manual, hooked it up to the TV. Cool part about this is I can actually scroll on the iPad. We'll go all the way down to like cylinder head. All right, so cylinder head here, removing and installing. Click on it, hyperlink it, and we can read it while we're working. So that's what we're gonna start with. Looks like drain coolant is the very first piece, so that's what we're gonna start with. All right, there's two pieces to drain in the coolant. We're gonna loosen this, undo the cap here. This is the coolant overflow reservoir. Oh, this one's a little tight. All right, next is under the car. This is the it says drain disconnect lower right coolant hose. Looks like this one. So we'll pop that loose and drain everything out. As I start to take this off, I noticed that that hose doesn't go into the radiator. It looks like it goes actually probably. Looking at this, looks the same as this. This one goes up into the turbo. So I'm guessing that's actually an intercooler hose. So this is probably the coolant hose. Hold on, ready? Yep, you can hear the coolant spraying back up into the reservoir. So this is the coolant hose. So I started you off and I told you it's that one. I thought about it after I said it. Lower right is actually passenger side, so it's probably this hose. And it looks like there's a clip, if you can see the clip right there. So I'll pull that clip and then drain it. So, yep, I'm an idiot. All right, I'm back on the top of the motor. The top here, that's a radiator piece. So there is a electrical connector here. If you pull, let's put my camera down in here. If I can see it. All right, so you got to pull this clasp, and then you can pull this electrical connector that goes here. And then there's another metal clasp here, and you can pull it out and drain the coolant from right there. As you hear the coolant draining, next step in the book here is removing the camshafts. Moving the camshafts actually requires a bunch of Volkswagen tools, but I also know that it's going to require a bunch of other garbage like air filter housings and all the junk in the way. So we'll start with those. Just so you can see the part that I disconnected, I probably could have grabbed this, but I couldn't get this wrench on the clamps because it was too far up there. So I pulled this, disconnected the, I don't know what that is, maybe a thermometer, I can't quite tell. Some type of sensor, and then I pulled this and just wiggled it off the radiator itself. And once I pulled it all the way down, it drained actually pretty quick. All right, removing the air box consists of all of these parts. Most of these are just like this one's clipped in. I think you can just pop this off pretty easy. Pop these clips and pull it off, and then I think these are all T25. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to undo probably up here and pull this whole piece out. This here is one of them silly connectors. I think you just squeeze it and wiggle it, and I think it comes right apart. Squeeze on the outside, yeah, and it just comes off. Should be able to lift this off pretty quick. Disconnect it there. Pull the top off. Now we can start pulling the base out. Once you got the filter out, you got another T30 holding the base in, and I think this is just a rubber plug. Got to be careful. You actually have I think you have another vent down in there, but I'm pretty sure if you just pull on that rubber plug, wiggle it, the whole thing will pop right out, and then you got to wiggle it free of this, and then you can pull the whole thing out. If you go to pull this apart, you're not gonna be able to get this box out with pulling this off. So I just stuck a screwdriver in here and pried that tab out. On the bottom, just flip it over. It's the same twist and pull, I'm sorry, squeeze and pull as was on the front of the airbox. So just squeeze this stupid thing, pull it. Should just pop right off. Wow. Well, I'm sure I can do it without a camera in my hand. In order to remove this, it's not the same T25s as the rest of them. It's actually a T20. So I find the easiest is just an actually straight up tool. So I'll unscrew this and set it down on the ground with the rest of the crap all that we just pulled out. All right, we got the filter housing out of the way. The next is we're going to move the top cover for the timing chain. Oh, come on. There we go. And see what we got to do. Next, we'll remove some coolant pieces. So I'm going to disconnect this hose here. I'm also going to disconnect this hose here. This one's a hose clamp. This is one of those push and squeeze like we saw in the airbox. And then if you take a screwdriver and you stick it right up next to the dipstick, you'll see you can actually pop the dipstick out of the cover for the timing chain. So just pull that back. All right, I lied. You can't just pull the dipstick out. You actually need a wrench down in here to get the bolts down here. If you can see that moving, you need to be able to undo that because there's a clip that is on the bottom of the dipstick, and you got to disconnect that too. It looks like it's about a 30 T30. It's a T30 Torx. When we disconnected the ignition coils in the first video, we actually disconnected, I think this is a cam magnet or something like that. There's actually a connector back here. If you pry it, it looks like it just comes up. Just get it out of the way. Our goal now is to take off, this is the timing cover. There are 6 bolts in the timing cover, and they have to be done in order. And the order starts in, I think, the bottom corner. So it goes like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. I'll put a diagram here so you can see them. The next is removing this camshaft control valve. These are Torx T30s, so we're just going to literally undo 1, 2, 3, unscrew these and pull that off as well, and then hopefully we can wiggle this loose now that we've got this these good to go. Now take that camshaft control valve off.
Sorry.
Just wiggle it. Wiggle. Wiggle, 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 wiggle.
Is it supposed to spin off?
No, just pull it. There you go. Be careful with it. I think that thing is heavy too, isn't it? Mm-hmm. All right. All right, now we're going to remove this timing cover. It looks like it is a gasket here, and let's see if we can get her all the way off. All right, let's pull this timing chain cover off. See what we got there. Okay, wiggle it. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
It's stuck right over here.
Is it? Mm-hmm. What is it stuck on? Does it connect to any wires or anything? Anything that's in the way? All right, there's the timing chain. There's the end of the camshaft. There is the end of the other camshaft, being a dual overhead cam. All right, I think we got to start disconnecting, I think coolant pipes next. All right, the next step following this manual is kind of a pain in the ass. I think the goal is to take everything off. So undid these clips here to pull the wiring harness out. Underneath here is actually a connector. This was plugged down in there, so we pulled that out. What else? I just undid these screws from here. You can see I just screwed them right back into the block so that I wouldn't lose them. I undid this from here, left those screws right back in the block. And then this is a PCV valve, and I undid, I think, 6 bolts here so I can actually pick the whole thing up. A couple more miscellaneous things, like you gotta disconnect this. It was right plugged in here. And then I pulled all the hoses we had from earlier. up out of the way. So what this looks like is pulling this out of the way, pulling this out of the way, and we get to pretty much where the head is going to be. I think there's just a couple of bolts to take that apart. That is a cap, I think, and then the head is underneath that, I think. But I'm retarded, so maybe not. All right, so there is a connector down here, and unfortunately, that connector is up against the block like that. So I would say an asshole engineer put that in place. Now we can actually take most of this stuff off the top, and then we've got access to what we need. I think I can disconnect this more, but I showed you most of the stuff that I pulled apart. And that's it for now. That's what we got. That's at least the top of, I think, these bolts here. These are actually just the spare ones that I put back in place. These bolts here are actually, then we can have access to the cams, and then underneath the cams, I think, are the bolts to release the head. So I think, we'll see. I think the next is removing the cylinder head cover. So it's on the cylinder head. So it's actually, you got to do it in an order. It's actually one, the outside one's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'll undo them, and then you can pull this off and take a look at it all. Right after we've undone all these, I think you can just pull up on the cover. I think it'll just come loose, I hope. Not missing anything, am I? Not missing anything here. Actually, my bad. In order to take this cylinder head cover off, you're gonna have to remove this coolant line. So there is a screw here. I think that's a 30 mil, a T30. I'm sorry. You gotta undo these 2 hoses. There's another screw here. It's a T30 as well, and then another here. Then you'll also have to undo this hose, and I believe this hose here. Then most of this should come out, and then we'll have a little way. I'm putting a paper towel on top in case any crud falls in. I don't want to get it dirty. All right, the secret to getting a couple of these hoses off, and again, I put paper towels here because a little bit of coolant leaked out. This is a coolant line after all. I actually undid this, which looks like it's a intake pipe for the turbo or whatever. So I undid this. I actually pulled it and swung it out of the way, and then grabbed these with a wrench to screw those off. So now what I did is I actually took all the connectors for the ignition coils and I slid them over here, and then I should, now that all this is disconnected, all of this should now come off together. So I'm gonna try to do this, but doing it with one hand's a pain, so. All right, the hard part for me to see with one hand was this is still a fuel line, which we're gonna leave on for right now, and we'll take the PCV, and I think along with this coolant line, we can take it off the car. Show you what we have here. Now we got a little bit more room in here. Got a bracket or 2 I can remove. And one of the next steps, just watching another couple of videos and looking through, I might actually take the engine mounts off so I can get more access to down here. It just seems like a real pain to keep screwing around these engine mounts. So maybe I'll take those off too today, so I have more access. But here is what we're looking at right now. This is just the head cover. I don't think it comes off until after we take this off. I think this is a fuel line, so I think this is the fuel pump. I see what looks like fuel lines here, so that's what I'm guessing. It doesn't mention it yet in the manual, so I'm guessing what I need is actually the tools to start locking the cams in place before I start yanking some of the rest of this stuff off. So stay tuned. Yeah, I decided to take off the engine mounting bolts. Now we got this one and this one. That actually is so it's a two-piece mounting kit. It's this piece to this piece, and then the second piece is actually here to the motor. So I've loosened one a little bit. As soon as I loosen the second, the motor's going to start to fall down a little bit, start to drop. What I've done to prevent that is I have my, I don't know what this thing is, 10-ton jegs online. I got about 1/8 of an inch between that and the transmission. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable that it's not going to go down very far. So let's see what happens. Looks like we're good to go, baby. All right, I guess I lied a little bit. In order to get this out, you've got a 16 here, a 16 on the other side, an 18 here, and an 18 there. But in order to do it, you'll probably have to, you got a 10 mil here, and then a 13 mil behind it with this bracket holding the mount to the side of the engine. So once you have that out, now I should be able to yank this damn thing out of here. So there, now I should have a lot more room. Look at the space we have in here now. All right, so this fuel line will be coming out of here shortly. There is a section in the manual that talks to it. Now I can actually get the tools down in here. So I think that was the right way to go. I think, at least from when last time I pulled the dipstick, it was literally just a plug that went into the engine. So I'll look down below. I think I can disconnect this, but that's all depending on if I'm going to replace the timing chain. However, what I wanted to show you is, we were debating on what the problem might be. And you can see down here, you can see the top of the cam. If you can see, actually the lifters on both sides, both intake and out and exhaust cams, they actually look fine. So it looks like the valves, at least not that you can see any valves that are bent. So keep going, try to figure out what it is. Hopefully still voting on head gasket here. Now that I have a little more room in here, if you get down and look at the end of the camshaft, see those two pins? Okay, focus, there you go. See those two pins? For those pins, they are equal to these pins here. So this came in the Volkswagen toolkit that showed up. Focus, there you go. That was about $60 on Amazon. It's about the cheap one. So, but this is the tool referenced. So you turn that, I believe, clockwise. It's reverse threaded, and I don't think it's on very hard. So see if I can get this done. I'll show you what happens. I've locked in the two pins, and it looks like it came loose that easy. So I'll just unwind this and show you. As it loosens up, this actually now just spins, and I can actually undo it with my fingers. So I'm going to do that rather than have the ratchet in the way. And I'll slowly pull that out. All right, this I believe is called a control valve. And on the 1.8T, there's only one. Manual actually references two, one on the other cam, but there is not on the 1.8T, at least not on this car. Next is removing the engine cap. So the engine cap here is 6 screws. They're actually Torx T30s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe we'll have to take that one off as well at the end of that cam. So take those out, and then this whole piece will come off. With those 7 Torx bolts removed, we should be able to pop this engine cap off. All right, you can see it wiggles a little bit. Might need a little bit of persuasion, but just try wiggling it a little bit. All right, it wiggles, but I want to be nice to it. All right, with a little bit of persuasion on the tab back here against the base of the pulley, as well as the tab here. Looks like with this little pry bar, I was able to wiggle the ending cap free. And here is who we're looking at. Cool. I'm gonna wipe this down, keep some of the oil off the rest of the car. And it slid onto these pins too, so it actually lines up really nice and easy. All right, now we need to rotate. We're gonna have to rotate this motor to get it to TDC. So top dead center, I believe. And if you look here, I think you can see that point right there, right in there, and then another one right there. There. So that here is supposed to line up with this mark on, this is the exhaust pulley. This is the intake pulley. So this also has a notch here. And we're gonna line that notch up there now. The way we're gonna do this is another Volkswagen specific tool. Actually go to the, I think it's the cam. So we're gonna take the whole, or the crank. So it's the crank pulley, which is spinning the accessories belt. So it's down in there, but it'll be easier to do from the bottom. I'll show you when I get there. All right, in order to rotate the motor to get to TDC, get underneath. So oil pan here, crankshaft here. You can see in the crankshaft, if I shine the light, let's see, I shine the light in there, you can see a couple of holes. There's actually 4 holes in a square pattern. So we're gonna try. Get the light set up so you can see. There are also 4 holes in this tool, 4 notches. We're gonna set this up in here, and then we're gonna rotate it as soon as we get it in until we are at TDC. All right. I'm not sure if this video is good, so. All right, so I started rotating it. You can see the lines just about line up there and line up here. So I think we're probably good to go, but I think one of the things you want to check is it looks to me that this chain link is a slightly different color, maybe? I don't know, it looks more gold to me than the rest of them. Let's see if I can get back to a light that works. See how that looks different? So what I'm gonna try doing is rotate it all the way around. Just rotate the engine all the way around to make sure that it's not, you know, maybe that's the crank one and the pulley, and the camshaft ones are farther down, because if I see one there and I don't see one there, I don't really like that. So I'll just rotate around for safety. All right, I am looking underneath the pulley now. So you can either rotate a little bit, jump up, see if you're at the TDC, right? Or I think if you look, I'm gonna try to show you. I'm not sure how good it's gonna show up on video, but we'll see. All right, ready? All right, so there is a mark here in the wheel, and then if I could clean this a little bit, and then there's a mark there. So if this lines up with that in one of your rotations, it's either close, this has to be lined up, and the 2 cams have to be lined up. So I just checked, this one is lined up with here, but the cams are not lined up up above. So I'll make one more rotation and it should be good to go. All right, I've just rotated it again, and it looks like I've got this mark here and this mark here, and the pulley lined up with the, this would be the timing cover, right? Timing cover, I guess it covers the timing chain. Now we're gonna go above, hopefully everything will be lined up. And it looks like, yep, we got a TDC there, and we got a mark right there. So we are pretty darn close. All right, so that looks good to me. All right, now for a little bit of sanity, I'm gonna wipe off the spots. Right, and I'm gonna take a Sharpie the center so I can line it up later. Looks good by me. All right, pretty soon we're gonna have to release the chain, right? And we're gonna have to, in order to do that, we're gonna have to release the tension on the chain. Now, there's tensioners down below here, and there's actually, when we're gonna go down below, we're gonna remove a little port. So it's a viewing port down below. That viewing port will allow us to push this, the tensioner back, and then we can put one of these clips through the viewport, so this clip through the viewport to lock the tensioner in the rear position, so we take tension off the pulley, or off these pulleys, so that we can actually pull the chain. So that's the step. I'll show you how I'm going to do that next. All right, going back underneath the car, you can see the crank pulley. You can see it there, but it's probably easier to see here. So this is the viewport. So I think we just grab this as a rubber plug and pop it out. Looks like it doesn't come out by hand, so we'll just use a little bit of pry. So we're gonna try popping this out, and then we should be able to see in there to see the chain tensioner. All right, I'm going to deviate a little bit from how I've seen it in the past or how I've read about it in the manuals. I'm actually going to, took the wheel off. I'm going to take the these internal wheel skirts off, a bunch of T25s, I think it looks like. Just, I'll be able to see the end of the crank and then reach my hand in rather than try to reach up and feel. So I'm going to take that off. All right, now I got the wheel off and the wheel skirts. You can actually see the view hole right there. So now we got to use the tools here, I believe, like this. Now, in order to release that tensioner, which I believe it's pushing that way on the chain, so we've got to push the chain or the tensioner back in, and then we clamp this in place to hold it back. In order to do that, the next thing we have to do is remove those 4 bolts right there, and we should be able to release it down below. From up above, but release it down below. So I'm looking a little bit here. Technically, you could probably compress this tensioner here just a little bit. Already, if you'll be able to see, you'll be able to compress it a little bit. But the problem that you run into is that there is a spring clip right here. So this spring clip needs to be compressed while the tensioner is pushed in, so that we can slide this in. So what we looked at is there's a Volkswagen specific tool that I don't have, but I think a really long cobalt screwdriver actually works if you put it down between the case and to the outside of the chain, and then you get on the tensioner. And you can feel it, it just kind of wiggles in there. So we're gonna pull on that. So we're gonna pull on that a little tiny bit and see if we can move the tensioner in. All right, now that I've got that clip in, I'm going to put this cam toothed thing, and it actually screws in right here. There's only 2 bolts, or 2 holes that are threaded that it fits into. Make sure they go in. All right. And then as you see, it almost fits in the teeth. See if I can find it right there. In order to make it fit, we grab the next tool and we'll just turn the top of the cam a little. The next tool is 40266. We'll put that tool here, the end of the cam, and then we will hook it up to a 3/8 ratchet and turn it until that clicks in place. And that is what it should look like. Oh, that's what it should look like when it is in a tooth. Hopefully you can see that. I had to wiggle it back and forth. It's not clockwise, counterclockwise. It's just wiggle a little bit, and it should slide right on pretty easy. All right, next, actually take another one of these triple square bits. It looks like it's the M12, and we're gonna take off, loosen this tensioner screw right here, and slide the tensioner down Right. And I lied. It's an M10 triple square. There. All right, once that tensioner is pushed down, you have room to actually put this clamp in. These clamps actually have different styles, so you want to make sure the little hooked edge that goes into the cam gear is actually on the left here. So, and then this one is locked in place on the right. All right, the next step is taking that guide rail off the top. Got the top chain tensioner off. Now we're gonna go over here to this, is it fuel regulator? We've already disconnected a lot of the electrical. I think we're just gonna do this fuel line and this fuel line. I think this is fuel, I think. And then this fuel line, and then we'll undo this bolt and that bolt. We should be able to just wiggle it off from there, and that might be all we need for getting the head cover off. All right, so you'll get a little bit of leaks here. This was a 17 mil nut. These here are the same T30s this here and here, the same T30s we've been dealing with. And then all you gotta do is just wiggle it out. And it looks like she comes all the way out. Next thing we do is take out the cylinder head cover bolts and remove this, I believe. I was wrong. As I went to loosen the head cover here, I noticed that it was kind of catching back here. I don't want to pry anything in aluminum. Obviously, I don't want to pry at all. So I undid the 3 bolts on the back of, maybe there's a vacuum pump or something, fuel pump. So now I noticed that now it comes off. So now it's a little easier. So now I'll pull it up. All right, just so you're clear, what actually holds it in place is it looks like this gasket between the head cover and this freaking thing. So you pretty much have to take it apart. I'm guessing you could probably get away without somehow, but I didn't want to mess with it. So now I have it down to the cams. We'll take the cams out next. All right, next we're taking off the intake manifold here. There's actually, I think, 10 bolts. It's funny, it looks like T30 Torx here, and then there's some kind of, looks like a, let me zoom in. Looks like that is a 10 mil. In order to get it, we'll just start taking the electrical pieces apart. And so disconnected one here, disconnect this all the way around. Just get all this crap out of the way. Once it's out of the way, we can start moving the rest of it. Next step, coolant line here. Just got those, I just pulled that out of the way. It's literally this one here, right here. That one will still have coolant in it, even though I've drained everything else. It's just left a residual in the lines. And I also undid this guy, so here and here, right? And then all I'm doing is just hiding it back behind. I don't think I need to take those off. Those are connected to other spots. So now this is I think this is an intercooler pipe is next, as well as, what else am I gonna disconnect? I'm gonna start with the bolts. There's actually 10, 5 here and 5 down below. All right, taking off the 10 bolts. Actually, what it turns into is there's bolts. Actually, 1, 2, there's 1 down in there, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 down there, and then this one and this one are actually just nuts. Those are 10 mil nuts. So the intake is getting loose, which is good. But I think this right here, so there, you can see this brace here. This brace, it's a 13 mil nut. There's also one, I think, on the block. That is actually just a support. You've got to disconnect it. I don't think you can just take this off. I think you have to take both ends off. I'm going to disconnect this as well. This intercooler pipe I haven't got off yet because it's hard to move that rubber. So maybe I'll have more room just disconnecting it and pulling the intake up. So I'll leave that on for a minute. I'm going to try taking this off and see. I got to be pretty close. So it doesn't look like the intake will come out without disconnecting both ends of this. So there is a 13 mil bolt here, a 13 mil nut, I should say. And on the other end, there's an M10 12 point, which is kind of a pain in the ass to get in there. So you got to kind of manipulate it. And it looks like the next thing that doesn't clear is this fuel line. So all I had disconnect is this from the high pressure pump. Now I'm actually disconnecting the 17 mil nut. That's the top nut, but the 17 mil nut at the bottom, and unscrewing it, just keeping the paper towel there in case I get any gasoline coming out. So then we'll see what else I got. After that fuel line is off, easiest way I found is loosen this. I put a screwdriver in here and just press down and use this as leverage. Looks like the intake is just about ready to come off. I don't know if I can do it with one hand, but it looks like I can almost get the whole thing off. So I'm gonna manipulate it out of the way without this being in the way. I'll let you know if there's anything else that I see. All right, so looks like the intake is mostly off. The last piece I was missing is right here, electrical connector, and then it pivots out. It looks like there's a whole bunch of electrical pieces snapped into the other side, so I'm just gonna wiggle those out. They just wiggle out to the bottom here, and then I think you can pull this whole intake out, and probably gaskets and everything. So I'll show you this better when it's on the bench. All right, so I started unclipping these, realizing that there's other pieces here that I'd still have to figure out, but it turns out there's two T30 Torxes in the back of the intake. So I just unscrewed this thing. We'll just leave it there for now. So we got our, here's our intake. Looks like our fuel rail, our injectors here. It's all looking pretty decent. I should be able to get the head off here pretty soon. Well, I didn't actually show it, but that fuel rail came off insanely easy. It actually was merely a T30 Torx that went into here, and T30 Torx that went into here, and the whole thing slid out. There was electrical wire behind it that I pulled. I'll show you. But the whole thing came out. Obviously, this is flipped around from how it was in there, but that's how it was there. You can see all these like little rubber grommets here, and then these are just held in. You know, they're just rubber in there, so you slide this back out. So that's what they look like. Now I can see that the head is starting to come loose, but I also know that it's probably, there's a turbo in the back. There's some more what looks like coolant lines still attached to the head that are pretty securely attached to the bottom here. So I'm just gonna walk around slowly undoing these bolts and pulling these pieces out as I go around the side of the motor. All right, looking a little closer, it looks like this one, which I thought I'd have to undo and unscrew, just one of those push tab. You squeeze these two and pop it off. So it looks like that comes off pretty easy. Once I saw that, my first thought is, well, I can't really undo this hose clamp easy, but I can do the next one down, which is actually facing me. So I think I'm just gonna pull it here and leave it on the head. So less of these, I have to make a big mess. You know, there might be gaskets or something here that I had to replace. So I'm just gonna leave those in place for right now. All right, next, I think the last thing I had to do before taking the head off here is removing the turbo, which is right here. And then there's a bracket. This thing here actually hides a bunch of crap, but the turbo's connected to the exhaust. So we're gonna go down below. I'll show you what I got. All right, so drive axle, I'm gonna remove these bolts. These are 17s. This right up directly above it is a 13. That's actually I think it's the turbo bracket that holds it in place. You can see the turbo right up there. And then I think right above it is actually the 4 bolts that hold the turbo in. So we will take them off and then show you what's next. All right, with the protective shield off, I put the bolts back in so I don't lose them, and I loosened the bottom bracket. You got to reach up to the back. The top one here is actually a 6 mil Allen. You want to take the top one completely out, leave the bottom one in. As you can see, that'll just swing down. All right, I'm gonna slide this right back in here so I don't lose it. All right, I'm pretty sure here, this is just maybe a heat shield. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to take this off. Let me go figure this out and I'll turn it back on. All right, so I'm taking off what these are. They look like they're just some kind of heat shield, but they are snaps. So any of these that you see, they just snap together. All right, you got to reach down behind this. There's a bolt where 3 of these pieces of tape are. It's interesting because they are not T30s like I expected. That one's a big fat 6mm Allen, and then these are let me see, these are M8 triple squares. So I got 2 M8 triple squares and a big fat 6 Allen. I say fat because the head's about that big around. So once you take that out though, what's great is I'm gonna start loosening. This is the turbo connect here. There's 4 of them, and I think they're 12mm. So I'm gonna disconnect those. You won't be able to get the turbo out until you get should be some oil lines. We took the bracket off, so it should be ready to come out, but we'll have to jiggle it and see what moves. This is probably a little bit overdue, but I'm actually draining the oil now, realizing that I'm gonna have to break some turbo oil lines. I'll probably have to make sure this oil is out. So it's draining from the pan underneath. Because I got this supported here, it's kind of tipped up. I got some welfare style going on, but it's draining in there. I just loosened this for some air to flow in. So, and this is a 32mm here, specifically for these oil caps. Now that the oil is all drained, I'll get from underneath here. You can see my wrench up in here, right? The hell is it? Ah, right here. All right, so this is a oil line, right? Connects the turbo to the block. So if you just undo this, it's one of those stupid triple square bits. That one looks like an M10. Looks like an M10. Just undo that, you should get some oil that comes out. I'm gonna connect both sides of it. It connects up above. Let me see if I can see it. The other end of it is right here. Right here. Zoom in, come on. There you go, focus. Right here, that's actually a little bit smaller one. So you wanna take both of these off. I take the whole line right off just to get out of the way. All right. Back up on the top of the engine, I think there's another oil line. I think the other maybe have been the return oil. This here, once you start unclipping it, you'll see this is, I think this is the feed line. Maybe it could be the other. So I'm gonna try to now see where that is down below and disconnect. All right, the remaining fuel lines are tough to see, so I'm gonna try pointing them out. I think you'll be able to see them, maybe even through this hole. Right there, hold on. Right up here. That is, there's two lines, just like the last two. Just like the last one. There is a Torx bit. There you go. Let's see if I can zoom in and see that. All right, so. Right, oh, get out of the way. That's the bracket from the turbo. It's still hanging out. Right there. That and these 2 lines need to come out. That is, I can tell you, it is it's an M8 triple square. All right, I have just disconnected the turbo. I disconnected that gasket there, and I've slid this back around. It's actually loose, as you can probably see. I can probably pull it, but I know that this has to come off, and I'm not sure what here has to come off. So what I do see is an electrical connector here, an electrical connector here, and this hose. So at a minimum, I'm gonna take those 3 off, and then hopefully that'll come off clean, and we can investigate if the head gasket was bad. All right, so 2 bolts on this guy. He popped out of there. That's just it pops out pretty easy. Electrical here, and you can't get this off. These hoses, these stupid hoses here, there's actually a nut or a screw back in here. These hook to a bracket on the head. So that looks like the last of it. Now I'm gonna try picking the head up. Hopefully, if we pick it up nice and straight. Oh boy. Oh, we're stuck on the chain. Well, maybe not. All right, so we got the head off. You know, I was expecting to see a little bit more problems between cylinder 1 and 2. But if you look, there's some googe here on cylinder 4. But again, that could just be oil. So I think these are oil passageways here. The thing that I'm looking to see is, you know, if there was partial in cylinder 1, so is it a partial compression? So I'm thinking it was leaking here. So it was leaking there, and it was leaking here. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, we took the head out and put it on the counter here. And as you can see when I zoom in a little bit, it looks like one of the intake valves is wide open.
All right, I got the head out on the table, and I think I've determined why I have no compression. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because of what I found out. So if you look down here, and I'm gonna try to zoom in so you can see it, this valve spring moves. Now, if you look underneath, you can actually see the spring itself is broken. And there's actually pieces down here. So first of all, it shouldn't rotate at all. And the only reason I found this is when I flipped the head upside down, I was able to push this valve about 1/4 inch, and the valve, it just falls open on the bottom. So it's an intake valve, and this happens to be cylinder 1. So I think I find why I have no compression on cylinder 1. So there you go. That is what the problem is. I'll get a new spring, probably replace that. Not sure if I'm gonna replace them all.